In the councils of government, we must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex.
But I do ask every publisher, every editor, and every newsman in the nation to re-examine his own standards and to recognize the nature of our country's peril. In time of war, the government and the press have customarily joined in an effort based largely on self-discipline to prevent unauthorized disclosures to the enemy. In times of clear and present danger, the courts have held that even the privileged rights of the First Amendment must yield to the public's need for national security. Today, no war has been declared, and however fierce the struggle may be, it may never be declared in the traditional fashion. Our way of life is under attack. Those who make themselves our enemy are advancing around the globe. The survival of our friends is in danger, and yet no war has been declared. No borders have been crossed by marching troops. No missiles have been fired. If the press is awaiting a declaration of war before it imposes the self-discipline of combat conditions, then I can only say that no war ever posed a greater threat to our security. If you are awaiting a finding of clear and present danger, then I can only say that the danger has never been more clear, and its presence has never been more imminent.
It's time to recognize that we've come to a turning point. We're threatened with an economic calamity of tremendous proportions, and the old business-as-usual treatment can't save us. Together, we must chart a different course. We must increase productivity. That means making it possible for industry to modernize and make use of the technology which we ourselves invented. That means putting Americans back to work, and that means, above all, bringing government spending back within government revenues, which is the only way, together with increased productivity, that we can reduce and, yes, eliminate inflation.
The only thing that can stop this corrupt machine is you. The only force strong enough to save our country is us. The only people brave enough to vote out this corrupt establishment is you, the American people. I'm doing this for the people and for the movement, and we will take back this country for you, and we will make America great again.
Hello, welcome back to Inform New Hampshire. I'm your host, Rich Merritt. Co-hosting today is Wylene Poliquin. Hopefully I get that right.
You do.
Let me see. First and foremost, I'm going to again ask President Trump to pardon Jerry DeLemus and the other two cohorts that were apprehended, I shouldn't say apprehended, incarcerated. So, Mr. Trump, please release them. They're innocent men. They stood against the tyranny that you're fighting in Washington. Secondly, go to the nationallibertyalliance.org and help them fund these books that they want to send out to the sheriffs. I happen to think it's extremely important because the sheriffs don't have a clue what the law is, as most of us don't. So if we can send those to the sheriff, maybe deputy sheriff will read it. I don't know. But it's worth a try anyway. Go to nationallibertyalliance.org, and if you can help financially or with your time, please do so. This show is going to be about the wrongful incarceration of a young man and the lack of due process, or the denial of due process, and he sits in jail for 37 days as of today. So Wylene's going to bring that to your attention. It's all yours, Wylene.
Thank you, Richie. Today's show is to expose the truth and the facts in an ongoing case in which my son has been suffering extensive violations of his I want to say this right, Richie. You want to help me with this?
What?
His
unalienable rights.
Unalienable
rights.
Can you explain that one for me again, please?
Unalienable rights are rights that cannot be aliened by anybody because they're granted to you by your creator and not the government. Government wants you to think that civil rights something that you're supposed to wave a flag about. Civil rights are granted by the government. They can be taken away by the government. We don't have civil rights. And back in the 60s, when the government did that to the minorities, to the blacks, for the most part, they screwed them. They lied to them. You've got unalienable rights granted by your creator.
Unalienable rights. I was always taught unalienable, so unalienable rights. That's good to learn. So he's been extensive violations of his unalienable rights at the hands of not only the actual perpetrator in the case, of which I will be proving throughout this show, but he was also betrayed and violated by the actual public servants that our tax dollars pay. To serve and protect. I like those words, serve and protect. I'm here to speak out for my son's rights because he's unable to. How I'd like to address this is by providing facts of the relationship which led to the charges. As I go along, I'll be providing supporting documentations of the events that I'm discussing. The two people that we'll be talking about today in particular are my son, Joshua Poliquin, number 2, please, and Elisa, a.k.a. Lisa Manso, number 1, please. The escapade began on paper in July of 2018, but in Josh's reality, it began a lot sooner than that. On July 4th, Josh was being berated and chastised by a drunken Lisa. No matter what he said to ask her to stop, how many times he walked away from her, she persisted with accusations of nonsense. I'm going to be reading a lot because I have a lot of facts, and I want to make sure that I inform you absolutely and 100% correct, okay? I don't want to get any facts wrong, okay? She persisted, and people have limits. When someone sits on you and you don't want them anywhere near you, you tell them to get off you, they don't move, what are you going to do, Richie? You going to just sit there, or are you going to get up?
Well, I'm going to ask them maybe a second or even a third time, but ultimately they're going on the floor.
Okay, thank you. Because I know I'm
If
going
they
to get
don't
up.
cooperate, yeah.
Exactly. I know I'm going to get up, okay, and that's exactly what Josh did. He finally, after numerous times of asking her to get up off of him, he finally just got up. Does that make you a woman beater or a woman abuser? I don't think it does. But anyway. We need numbers 3 and 4 now, please. The police were called, and these are incident reports from the police. And Lisa gave slightly different stories from that. And I actually have them myself, too. So, and I actually want to read those. It says here, I was working my midnight shift assigned as the booking officer. Goffstown PD arrested Joshua Poliquin, 22988. He was later transported to our police department to be booked on one of our warrants. During the booking process, I received a phone call from a female asking about if Poliquin would be able to be bailed out. I then asked for the female's name who was on the phone with me. She stated to me her name was Elisa Manso. I read the report on this case and noticed Manso was the victim in the case. I informed her that she would not be able to bail Poliquin out. I was later informed by Officer Hood, who was assigned the front counter, that Manso came to the headquarters lobby to bail Poliquin out. She was sent on her way and told she was not allowed to bail Poliquin out. And she gave another slightly different one. Let's see. Okay. Elisa first stated that she recently developed a light bruise on her forehead that she believes is also a result of Joshua assaulting her on the morning of 7/4. Elisa stated that she's not completely sure how she got the bruise, but stated that Josh slapped her in the face and head numerous times. and threw her on the ground. She also stated that during that time, Joshua grabbed and squeezed her face. Also showed bruising on her calf, large bruise, laceration. Elisa stated that the large bruise was from when Josh threw her onto the vacuum. Also thought that she had a concussion from when Josh threw her on the ground. Also headaches from when she was vomiting. Totally different stories. Do you see what I'm saying? Two different reports. She gave two different stories. It just seems to me that if you're telling the truth, your stories are going to be the same. Do you know what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah.
So Josh was arrested for simple assault and criminal threatening, but Lisa denied medical attention, and that those charges were actually dropped because there wasn't enough evidence, and Lisa later on actually denied that anything ever even happened. After the arrest, Joshua came to live with me. There was not a time that Lisa was not involved in some way. Even though she wasn't supposed to be, I begged Josh to honor the no contact order, but I had witnessed what she was putting him through, using everything he owns and that means anything to him to blackmail him. Numbers 5 through 7, please. She had him completely controlled, and she was using everything she could to destroy his life. He ended up getting arrested again on August 1st because she forced him, after completely contacting him numerous times. She kept telling him, threatening him. He kept telling her no, that he was not going to meet her, and she kept saying that she was going to get rid of his stuff if he didn't meet her. So finally, he agreed to meet her over across the street from where I live and work. And so he met her over there. They met inside. She walked out first. She hopped in the passenger side of her car. He hopped in the driver's seat. Next thing we know, there were a bunch of cops over there. He got arrested for habitual offender, operating after habitual offender, which we all know under Admiralty jurisdiction, right? Because we don't have our right to travel. He shouldn't have done that. He was not operating the vehicle. He just sat in the driver's seat.
Well, if the car is running, they'll make the determination that
It wasn't
you
running.
were.
It wasn't running. He was just sitting in the driver's seat. And all he did was, she purposely came out of the building, went over, sat in the passenger seat. She was drunk. She should have just, regardless, sat in the driver's seat. Josh lived with me over across the street. He wasn't going anywhere with her. She sat purposely in the passenger seat, so he had to sit in the driver's seat. They were waiting for a ride for her. He ended up, that next thing you know, there's cops everywhere, and he ends up getting arrested. I'm sorry, I lost my place for a second. She again called to see if she could bail him out. Anyway, I need to say, as a survivor of multi-level abuse, that abusees do not seek out their abusers. But the next arrest occurred on early morning of August 17th. So if we could put up 10 through 13, for disobeying an officer, reckless operation, resisting arrest, and so forth. Lisa was intoxicated, and Josh ended up having to drive. This is where it got really bad. She continued to use his things to threaten him, and he met her again to get more of his things. She threatened to put him in prison for life if he didn't go meet her. So he went to meet her. I'm sorry, I'm don't mean to get so emotional. He pulled the car over, and he ran out and ended up jumping over a ledge, which he expected to be level. It turned out to be a 20-plus foot drop. His legs ended up being severely fractured and broken. If we could get number 14 up. He landed as he described, like Spider-Man would, with his 2 feet, landed on his 2 feet and both hands down. It was the actual impact of the drop that caused for his legs to end up broken. But he actually did try to continue to run. If it weren't for all the turmoil going on with everything, with all the threats from Lisa and the no contact order in place and so on, he would have just sat, dealt with it, and faced it. But he knew that with everything going on, that it would have just been too much. So he was like, I know I just need to go. So he ran, and it ended up being worse than what he thought it was going to be, because it ended up being a drop. He was laying on the ground, and he could hear all the police officers yelling at Lisa, and there was another passenger in the car. And they were yelling, get down, get down. He described it as feeling to take about 8 or 9 minutes, and here I'd like to share the incident reports from the reporting officers. I'm not sure how to pronounce his name, Michael Masajos and Officer Michael Roscoe, numbers 15 and 16. Let's see. Let's see. Officer Masajos said, I made my way down to where the suspect had landed. He landed between 50 Bridge Street and the Pearl Street parking lot. The drop appeared to be at least 20 feet. The suspect had crawled from where he had landed to the edge of the building, 50 Bridge Street. I gave the suspect commands to roll to his stomach and place his hands behind his back. He was advised that he was under arrest. He refused, so Officer Jaworowski and I each grabbed an arm, escorted him to his stomach, and I placed him into handcuffs, which were double locked and checked for proper fit. AMR and the Manchester Fire Department were on scene. I had called for them to respond after the suspect had jumped from the ledge. It was determined on scene that he was seriously injured, so he was transported to the Catholic Medical Center in an ambulance. Based on my observations of him, at least one of his legs was broken. There was a clear compound fracture to his right leg. The suspect was identified as Joshua Poliquin. The other officer, Officer Roscoe, writes, Officer Masajos then began attempting to locate the driver of the vehicle, which was later reported that he had ran on foot before jumping over a ledge and onto the pavement nearly 20 feet below. It was later discovered that this male driver suffered leg injuries, however, began crawling away in attempts to further elude police. Officer Masajos rounded the corner to apprehend the driver as I attempted to detain the remaining 2 passengers, who were later identified as Elisa Manso and another person. I gave repeated loud verbal commands, screaming, get on the ground, get down on the ground now, a total of at least 5 or 6 times, with no response from either Bishop or Manso. It should be noted that Officer Masajos and myself were the only officers on scene attempting to detain 3 individuals, one of which had already escaped and would have gotten away if he had not suffered lower extremity injuries, preventing him from walking. As Officer Masajos left to detain this driver, I needed to detain both Manso and Bishop extremely fast. Now, my son's take on it is this, and I wrote his word for word. I landed on my feet, like Spider-Man. I tried to run, but I couldn't. I landed face down. I got up and tried to run again, and I think it's when I hit the ground again is when I realized that my legs were broken. My adrenaline or shock at the time, I don't know. I heard the officers as they were yelling at Lisa and the other person. It was pretty loud, telling them to get down on the ground. I guess Lisa wasn't cooperating or something, I don't know. Then I heard them coming, which I knew they would. There were 2 of them, I'm pretty sure. That's what I saw anyway. I yelled out to them, "My legs are broken." But then they tackled me anyway, rolled me into a chokehold, exposing my front side. Then the other officer started to kick me. Then I blacked out. Why they had to tackle me, I was already on the ground. I yelled that my legs were broken, you know. Next thing I knew, I was in the hospital getting anesthesia. The next thing I knew after that, I was waking up in recovery after surgery on my legs and ankles. Number 17, please. That sure sounds like 2 completely different accounts to me about what happened. And there were also 2 homeless people that were there that witnessed the whole thing. And all I know is their 2 first names. Their names were Jess and Tracy. We were given their phone numbers. And I handed that over to Josh's lawyer, which we were told that they couldn't be found. But yet, ironically, they were seen all over town by people that we know. So eventually, he spent 5 days in the hospital. He was sent to Valley Street. Once he was in Valley Street, he wasn't given any of the medical necessities that was needed for his recovery. He was eventually released to me on medical leave. His incisions, 18 through 20, please. They were horrid. They were infected due to the lack of proper medical attention. Finally, he was able to rent his own room, which for Josh was absolutely empowering. He thought no more being told, "Take your kid and get out." Whenever he tried to leave her, he was threatened. Take your kid, get out. If you try to leave, I'll just take your stuff, sell it on Craigslist, and just anything except give it to him. She'd taunt him with pictures of his personal belongings and just maniacal messages. Make him try to meet up with her in order to supposedly give him his things. 21 through 22. There was a night that she bribed him to supposedly meet up with him. Let's see. Now, I want to flash through some messages to show you that she's literally the stalker in the relationship and always was, 23 through 46. But yet my son is in jail for being a stalker. And then there's going to be a video of Lisa banging on his window, number 47. And I'll actually read you the dialogue after it's done of what she says so that you don't have to try to hear it.
This is in his room, right?
Yep, he's in his room videotaping this. She's standing outside his room.
So open up the window, Josh. Open up the... Oh my God, it smells like fucking ass out here. Yeah, it smells like food.
Yep. She says, "Hey, Josh," as she's banging fiercely on the outside of the window, yelling for him to open the window, threatening him. "Open the window." She stops banging to look at her phone. "Good. The cops will show up. They'll know we're together. You'll get arrested. So open up the window, Josh. Open up." It's inaudible and profanity. "Josh, talk to me. I know you see me. You're right there. Josh ducks down, and then it ends the video. Okay, but my son's the stalker. My son's the stalker. You saw all the messages where she's calling him, she's banging, she's calling him, he doesn't answer. She sends him all kinds of stuff. She's threatening him, but my son's in jail for stalking. Who was banging on the outside of that window? Her or my son?
Well, can I say something here?
Absolutely, please.
I'll jump in. My understanding is your son violated a restraining order. He was charged with that. They tried him in a jury trial. He was convicted of it, and now he's in jail for 37 days. So what's the problem?
The problem is that that's absolutely incorrect. The problem is that my son was not given his due process. I showed up with all this evidence and tried to show it to his lawyer. I sent it to the prosecutor. I gave them everything, and they told me, inadmissible.
2 minutes, Richie.
They keep telling me that the restraining order is one-sided. He can't do any of this, but she can do it all. She can contact him. She can go to his room, which is exactly what happened, and then he got arrested. This is all one-sided.
And she works for what profession?
A lawyer.
A lawyer, okay.
Yeah. So, yeah. He was not given his due process. He's been arrested, and he's sitting in jail. And who's the stalker? Who do you see is the one doing all this?
Was part of this dismissed or discharged or whatever?
Apparently not.
No?
Apparently not, no, because the only part that was way in the beginning, and because they didn't have enough evidence. But then she showed up at his room. Cops came, busted in the door, and arrested him for stalking for breaking the no contact order.
Well, I just wanted to make this point. We're doing this show to expose the fraud in the courts, and believe me, there's nothing but fraud in the courts.
Yep.
But no one shall be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of law. Wylene's son didn't get due process. He sits in jail after 37 days with no due process. So I'm asking, where is the law? Where are the attorneys to come to his aid and get him out? Not that attorneys should. It's a system they created. I won't go down that road.
Yeah, and why weren't we allowed to present the evidence? It says in the law we're allowed to present evidence in our defense.
Well, your attorney said
inadmissible.
Well, don't bring it up because you're not going to win.
Yeah, she said judge won't accept it, inadmissible. Judge won't sign off on that. No, she bullied my son.
A judge, very quickly, a judge doesn't sit over an individual. A jury does. If a judge sits over you, you're a slave. No one man rules over another in this country. But our system has morphed into it, and everybody says, well, he's the judge.
She said if we went to trial, we wouldn't win.
Pretty soon.
Okay. We might have to finish this off with another show. We'll talk about it with Wylene. I just wanted to expose the fraud that's going on in the courts, with the family courts, with non-judicial foreclosure on people's homes, people being incarcerated. And by the way, the jail is privately owned, so the more people you put in there, the more money they make on it. Another scam. Thank you for watching. Thank you, Wylene, for being on the show.
Thank you for letting me do this, Richie.
And
thank you.
Please share this. We're trying to expose what's going on in the state. Thank you.